me a very special guest, Indian journalist and editor at India Today, Shiv Aroor. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
So my first question to you is, what is your idea of Bharat today and tomorrow?
Well, I think India is a rising country, and I think India is a country that has many unique things that most other countries don't. We have an enormous workforce, an enormous population, a highly diverse population, which I think can be a strength and a weakness. But I think tomorrow's Bharat needs to tap into the power of having all this diversity. In many ways, India is not really a country; it's a continent. It's made up of many different, states, which each have their own, unique language, ethnicity, culture, food, politics, way of doing things. It's a huge challenge for India to actually bring all of this together, and I think it's something that is not acknowledged enough in the world. So I think tomorrow's story is definitely going to be about Bharat.
Since you're in the field of media for a very long time, journalism schools teach about ethics, but we often see that people in the industry don't show that ethics. Why is this?
Well, that's a good question. I think there are always going to be bad apples in every industry. I personally became a journalist because I had a very sort of lofty ideal about being a journalist, doing good for the country and the world, telling the truth, speaking to power, keeping governments accountable, etc. But I think there are many people who lose their way in journalism sometimes, and who perhaps take shortcuts, bend ethical norms. There are many. I have to admit that there are many. I personally don't think that I have. I try not to. I do my best. Maybe I have sometimes that I'm not aware of. But I think it's a very serious situation when ethical violations are on the increase in journalism, and it's something that needs to be looked at very closely. There are some checks and balances now, but I believe they're not quite enough.
How does the economy work in the media?
Well, the media is a business in India. The media is a privately held business in India, which has its own pulls and pressures. It's a largely distribution and advertising supported private sector business. The economy functions basically on that. It's a highly competitive industry. India has some of the largest number of newspapers and channels and radio stations in the world, and that's as a result of the number of languages we have. So we tend to think of the national media as the media that's based in Delhi, but I think that's a very wrong perception. I think all media in India are national media because there are viewers. For instance, there are viewers for a Kannada channel all over India. There are viewers for a Tamil channel all over India. There are viewers for a Bengali channel all over India. Similarly, there are viewers for English channels all over India as well. So the economy is, there are many critics of the economy. They say that an advertising funded news business can never be independent. It can never be fully self-sufficient in terms of bringing out the right news. I believe that depends on the organization. Like, for example, I work for an organization called India Today, which has been fiercely independent. It has never had political leanings. It has always, and it's a private sector business. It functions on the same economies as many of the other businesses do, and yet it has never gone down any kind of path where it can be, blamed for bending any rules of any kind. So the India Today group actually stands out as an example of the gold standard of journalism, which is that there has to be a separation between the economy, the business, and the act of journalism.
When we say about the overcrowd in Indian media, what is the opportunity for individual independent journalists if they have their own channels? operated by
huge. It's a huge opportunity, and I think it's one of the most amazing things about the internet and the current situation, where I think traditional legacy media are less and less consumed. I think people of your generation, and even now people of my generation, consume your news through your smartphone, through your phone, right? I don't see too many people switching on. Forget. I mean, look at it this way: are you going to switch on a TV and watch the news, or watch a channel on its YouTube live stream or whatever? So, in that sense, there are very successful examples of people who've made broadcasters out of themselves individually. I do that as well in the field of defense. So it's the opportunity is massive, especially at a time when there is a kind of downsizing of traditional media. The cost of traditional media is too high to sustain it in the long term. Digital, single individual broadcasters is going to be a very, very big thing. Podcasts, all of these are going to be very big.
How to convince people about the climate emergency through media? What can be done?
Good question. I don't think the media has been able to find an answer to that just yet, because most people, as you probably know, are very skeptical or cynical about climate change, simply because nobody cares about anything that they don't see affecting their life immediately. I come from a city where we've had the most horrifying pollution cloud over the city for a whole 2 weeks. Now, it was not directly because of climate change, it was because of stubble burning, but climate change affects all of these things, and it amplifies this situation. Now, millions of people live in Delhi. They lived in that situation. They were breathing that filthy air for 2 weeks. They could see it above them, but none of them will move out of Delhi. Now, when people like that cannot be sensitized and made to sit up and take notice climate change, then I think it's a very huge problem for the media. And I think the media is only one aspect of it. It's not just about the media. It's also about the politicians. It's also about civil society and the public themselves, who need to look around them and realize that this is something that we need to be self-aware about.
When we say about the digital has been dominant in the field of media nowadays, how to take on fake news issues?
Well, it's like all large steps in technology and in the field of news, there are always going to be these diseases, as I can call them. Fake news is a terrifying disease. It's dangerous. It has led to death. It has led to lynchings. It has led to riots and violence of all kinds. So it is an extremely serious issue at this point of time. I believe the only way to battle it is through technology and through counter-journalism. There are many fact-checking entities and websites and companies. India Today has an excellent fact-checking department, and so I think it's like an army versus an army. You'll have an army of fake news spreaders and an army of fact checkers countering that, and I think the truth obviously will be will have to emerge after that war. So it's a constant thing. It's not a one-time thing. It's going to be a long battle.
Do you think in India today there are most of the media channels, rather than keeping the facts or reporting news, they're selling propaganda?
Well, some certainly sell propaganda. Not all of them. I think the greater issue is not so much. Propaganda is certainly one of the issues, but I see the more widespread replacement for news on television is opinion. There's too much opinion and debate, or colored debate around an issue, rather than just a straight reporting of facts. I get people all the time asking me, what happened to a news channel being just telling us what is happening in the world, rather than telling us what you think of what is happening in the world. So, but the flip side of that is, if you look at viewership ratings, the number of people who are tuning in to watch these things, and this goes back to your question about economy. people love watching things that have a lot of opinion. People like consuming shows that are full of drama and full of even with propaganda, and shows and channels that have a lot of propaganda content are among the highest watched channels and shows in the country right now. So the public needs to think about that as well, not just the media channels.
Thanks for spending this time.
Thank you. Thank you.